What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Too Pop to Handle. I'm your host, Andrew Catola, your pop culture best friend, and as always, I hope you guys are having a fabulous week. Now, I hate to come on the podcast and kick things off on a negative note. However, this is our final episode of 2025, which is so crazy. It's so wild that we are already here at the last episode of the year. However, you will get one more podcast episode from me before the end of the year, but it won't be like the regular traditional format that we do. It will just be a 2025 pop culture recap. We do like a year in review where I go from January to December and recap all of the pop culture moments from the year that were just too pop to handle. I do them every year, and they're so much fun to look back on the year and just kind of rapid fire through the year and be like, holy shit, that was this year, or things that we forgot about because other things happened. It's a fun episode to do. So I'm working on that. That will be to you guys the last week of the year, but this is our final episode where we're doing what's going on current day, in real time. I was going to do an episode next week, the week of Christmas, but I feel like nothing's really going to happen. So unless something major happens, like Beyoncé drops Act 3, which we know is not happening, I don't know, something happened with Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande, or I don't know, if something major happens, we will do an episode. Maybe I'll do a quick bonus emergency episode. However, I don't see anything major happening. The only thing really big happening between now and that recap is going to be Ariana Grande on SNL, which I'm going to write about on Substack this weekend. So if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, make sure you are subscribed at twopoptohandle.substack.com, and you will hear all my thoughts about SNL there. But I don't think anything's going to be groundbreaking enough to pull out the mic and do a whole episode. So this is, or should be, our final episode of 2025, which is crazy. It's been such a wild year for just pop culture and my life in general. So much has happened this year, and looking back on 2025, I'm like, holy shit, we jammed a lot into this year, and I'm very excited to give you guys that pop culture recap. But you guys know the news doesn't stop just yet. We still have a few more weeks left in the year, so we do have some moments from the week that were just too pop to handle to dive into, and there's some good ones this week. There's some juicy stuff going on in the pop culture world this week, and I'm very excited to dive into it with you guys today. So I think the best thing to do is to just kick it right off and get right into the show. Now, there are no Drew releases this week, our new music segment, because nothing is coming out. It's the end of the year. People are saving it for next year. There's no albums, no singles, nothing really coming out. Maybe some Christmas tracks. I don't really know, but nothing coming out that I'm going to be covering with you guys just yet. So no Drew releases, which means we are diving right into some pop culture moments from the week that were just too pop to handle. Kicking it off with some more unfortunate news. Now, this is much more unfortunate than this being my last episode of 2025, but Rob and Michele Reiner have been found dead in their Brentwood home, and their son is responsible for their death. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. If you would have mentioned this couple's name to me a few days ago, I do not know who they are. This is a blind spot for me, but I am familiar with their work. I mean, When Harry Met Sally, First Wives Club, All in the Family, Wolf of Wall Street. There are many projects that Rob and Michele both touch that I am very familiar with, and it is a blind spot to me. Like I said, that I didn't know their name to tie to the project, so that is on me. However, this story is so insane. So the couple was found dead in their Brentwood home on Sunday, and investigators eventually determined that they were victims of a homicide. Nick Reiner, 32, was arrested several hours later, and he's being held without bail. It was reported that Nick was seen having an argument with his father at a holiday party Saturday night at Conan O'Brien's Los Angeles home, and then on Sunday, Romy Reiner, their daughter, was the one who discovered them after they were killed in their own home. And this story just gets sadder and sadder the more you read about it. I mean, obviously, anybody being killed in their own home, anybody being killed, period, is devastating. And this weekend especially, there was a lot of violence happening around the world with the Brown University shooting. There was a shooting in Australia. There's just so much hate in the world right now, and I feel like it's just amplified, which is really heartbreaking, and a whole nother plot line that I could go down, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not here to just, be a depressing podcast. But this story, just the levels to this are insane. For this couple to be killed in their own home, and then to find out that their son is linked to the murder after the son and father had a fight at a holiday party Saturday night, which it seems like it was a public fight if this is being reported. Obviously the son's not reporting this to the news and being like, oh yeah, we got into a fight last night and then I killed them or whatever happened. This is clearly a public argument that they had at this holiday party. And then for the daughter to find them, it is just one thing after another. It's so heartbreaking. And like I said, they are kind of a blind spot to me. I unfortunately am just not well known with their names. I know their projects, like I said, but I was doing some research on them, just trying to figure out, like, was there a weird family dynamic? And I found a movie from 2015 called Being Charlie, which Nick co-wrote and his father directed. And it's a movie about a troubled teen's battle with a drug addiction, which is based on Nick's own experiences, which involves homelessness and multiple rehab stints, creating a deeply personal project that brought the father and son closer while exploring their family's dynamics. And once I read that, I was like, oh, okay. I wonder, like, what the family relationship with. Of course, there's this project, and, like, it seems like they were trying to mend something. And I mean, if he was homeless at some point and dealing with addiction, unfortunately, addiction is something that doesn't go away, and it is something that follows you, whether it's an active addiction or something that you are in recovery for. Like, it is kind of something you have to actively work on, because addiction is something that is, like, embedded within your being. You know, it is like an addictive personality, whether it is drugs or alcohol, whatever your vice is. So I wonder if there was anything going on with that or what was going on, but it does seem like there were some, like they said, family dynamics in which they were exploring through the years. And I'm curious, like, what this fight was about. Like, they did say it was at Conan O'Brien's holiday party, or at his house at least. So this must have been a public argument that they were having, that enough people could see it. And, you know, it got reported after. You know, this wasn't something that just, like, happened in the car or, like, in a private spot. This was obviously a very public argument that they were having for somebody to come out and report it. Just really heartbreaking. I mean, we now have their daughter, Romy, who just lost not only a mother and a father, but also her brother, because he's going to go to jail for, I'm assuming, the rest of his life. And I don't know what their relationship's going to be like, knowing that he is tied to her parents' death. You know, like, this is just such a heartbreaking story. And like I said, like, seeing all the people posting about them now, being like, they were such a lovely couple and such a pleasure to work with always. I mean, Michelle Obama literally was like, we had plans with them on Sunday night, and just such a heartbreaking story to read. And like I said, the more that comes out about it, the more it's like, holy shit, like, what was going on and, like, what happened? This is some sinister shit. And just knowing their love story, like, they met on the set of When Harry Met Sally, which is such a beloved love story. And that's such, like, a director producer way to meet, you know, like, on the set of a rom-com. It's like a rom-com within itself. So just very sad and crazy to read that, like, there's so many family things linked within. And I don't know, I'm curious to see, like, what else comes out about this and what they discover with the son and the argument, things like that. But obviously the biggest thing is just, like, making sure their daughter is okay and, like, getting any help and guidance that she needs when she just lost pretty much her entire family. Like, it's just devastating to read. But switching gears and, you know, kind of trying to lift the mood a little bit more, it always feels so dystopian to, like, talk about anything so heartbreaking, like a death or anything, and then being like, so Taylor Swift, but, like, it's unfortunately, like, we've become desensitized to these things in the world, and it's like, oh yeah, a mass shooting happens, but, like, let's just keep scrolling and keep going. It is unfortunately the world that we live in. But that being said, Taylor Swift is here to kind of try and lift our spirits as much as she can. So the Taylor Swift Eras Tour documentary has come out, or started to come out. 2 of the 6 episodes have been released on Disney Plus, and the entire concert film with the Tortured Poet set has come out. I watched both documentary episodes. I didn't watch the movie yet. I don't think I'm going to watch the film. Maybe I'll skip to the Tortured Poet set just to see that. But I went to the Eras Tour twice. I saw the movie. I watched it on plenty of grainy live streams and on TikTok. I'm like, I'm okay. I don't need to watch this again, but maybe I will go and watch the Tortured Poet set. But regardless, I watched the documentary and I loved it. I was really curious how she was going to go about breaking up these episodes, because I was like, it's all about the Eras Tour and, like, the making of and the final shows, and, you know, how they were going to go about breaking this up and how they were going to kind of construct it. And I'm really liking the way that they're doing it. There's obviously, like, one theme throughout each episode so far, with the first one talking about the Vienna threats and the attack that happened at that Taylor Swift dance party, and showing Taylor kind of coming out of what that was and going on stage, and, like, what the Eras Tour means, not just to the fans, but to her and the dancers, and how it kind of was this, like, beacon of light and, like, celebration that they had to do. And the second one being all about, you know, Cam and his mom and the bonuses and, you know, all the people who kind of make the Eras Tour come to life. And also it was really cool to see them, like, kind of putting together the Tortured Poets department set, and then the whole Florida performance with Florence. I really love that. So obviously, as I do, I took notes as I watched. So we're just going to kind of dive into all of the notes that I took while I watched. Kicking it off, I think the most exciting thing about this is just seeing the behind the scenes of this tour. I mean, the Eras Tour, it was such a monster and a beast of a show. I mean, 3 hours long. She's going through all these different costume changes, all these different sets, taking it from city to city for so many years. I feel like the tour went on for, like, almost 2 years, it had to be. And we never really got to see too much behind the curtain. She really kept a nice like facade of like, you only see what's on stage. I'm not showing you behind the scenes, until she wanted to, until she started to kind of show us a little bit here and there. But now we're really getting into the like the nitty gritty of it. And we're seeing, you know, the bulletin board with all of the songs on it. And we're seeing how she gets from the stage. And I think like even to me was like watching her in the cleaning cart, like that cleaning cart camera, and then like watching her like get out. I didn't realize it. Literally, they wheeled her to the stage and she got off and then like went up to the stage. I figured they just like brought her backstage, she got out, and then she walked. But like literally, she was wheeled up until the point in which she had to get on that little whatever thing to like fly over to her lift. And like that's how she got to the stage. Very interesting to me. I love the behind the scenes of a tour. I think live music and tours and concerts are such a bigger production than people realize. So anytime we get to see anything like this, I am all in and I'm eating all of this up. And it is really crazy to like hear the dancers and Taylor and you know, the band members, everyone talk about like when the Eras tour started and like when she conceptualized it and told her mom or told everybody, and they were like, yeah, great, we're going to do this tour, whatever. It's going to be big because it's Taylor Swift. But like nobody could have imagined what the Eras tour was going to become when she announced it. Like we were waiting for Taylor to tour for so long at that point. I think the last time she had toured was Reputation 2018 that had to be. So we were waiting for 5 years. They were, you know, I mean, we had Loverfest, but that never happened. So like we got that like ripped away from us in 2020. And then we were all kind of sitting here waiting to see like, what is she going to do next? She released these 2 folky albums through the pandemic that don't fit Lover at all. And knowing Taylor, like what she had been doing before that was touring every single album. And we were like, how the hell is she going to sing August, Cruel Summer, and 'Tis the Damn Season all in one tour? Like it just like didn't make sense until it made sense. And I just think the way that she went about the Eras tour was really genius. I'm like, I don't need to tell you guys that. We all know the Eras tour was a genius idea for Taylor to do, and it clearly worked out. Like spoiler alert, it ended up being perfectly fine. But it really is so cool to see them kind of like go through the entire process of creating this tour and starting it from zero and going into the first rehearsals and opening night and then closing night, and just seeing all the pieces that went into this tour is so interesting to me. More unfortunate news, unfortunately, but we do learn about like the Vienna attacks, or the Vienna threats, I should say, before, you know, thankfully they didn't happen, but we do learn about them episode 1, which I was not expecting that right off the bat. Like they just got into it, but I think the way that they put this story into this episode made a lot of sense, and really it painted it in the best light that they could have, if that made sense. I mean, it is just so crazy to me. Like, I remember when the story broke, like the fact that they were able, like the police were able to track these people down and figure out that they had this plan for the shows is so wild to me. And like, thank God that they did, because like it could have been such a, like she said in the thing, it could have been a massacre. Like they completely avoided an entire attack on this tour, which like would have ended in so many thousands of deaths, which is so heartbreaking. And I just think back to like when Ariana had the Manchester attacks and like all of that, like that was so devastating. And this would just be like, the fact that they were able to stop this right before it happened is so unreal to me. Like it's really crazy. And then of course we see all the stuff with the dance party that happened in Liverpool and Taylor meeting the families and all of that. And it's just, it really is wild to like watch Taylor like backstage crying and like having these crazy emotional moments. She's like sitting there singing or like rehearsing, and she's like, my hands are shaking. Like I need to just like lay on the couch and stop for a second because I need to gather my thoughts. It's just, it really, I feel like people, and her and Ed Sheeran are talking about this on the documentary, and they were saying how like people forget that like, yes, Taylor Swift is this pop star, and you could strip this away and be to any musician or celebrity or public figure. Like, yeah, they are this celebrity pop star, whatever, but they are a human being at the end of the day. You know, like there is a human who functions within there. There is a brain, there is a nervous system. Like there is a lot more to Taylor Swift than what we see in a sparkly pink bodysuit on the Eras Tour stage. And I'm really just excited for this docuseries to continue to give us more insight into what was happening with Taylor and the dancers and everybody backstage and behind the scenes while this massive tour was going on. Speaking of like behind the scenes stuff, I was always so curious how she, like what it looked like from the other perspective of her in the opening sequence when they had those giant transparent like cloth, almost like flower petal things. I don't know what we call them, but you know, the things that the dancers had that like covered up her lift, and then she came out and said it's been a long time coming. I was always so curious like how long she was underneath it and like how much she had to like stand up. Like, was she crouching the whole time? Like, I don't know. These are the things that I think of when I go to a concert. Like, I'm always thinking about the logistics behind the scenes. I'm thinking about like, how did they get her on that lift? The whole thing about her like diving into the stage, like that is so fascinating to me. And like watching them like sit on that little, I don't even know what it is, but it just like throws her from like one side of the catwalk to the other side in like half a second. Like seeing all of these things is so interesting to me, and watching the opening sequence and like seeing how she goes in the lift and it lifts her a little bit and there's a message like on the screen, whatever, that she gets to read, and then it like opens up and she is there. So fascinating to me. Like, it is so, in another life, like I was a tour producer or something, or maybe my next career move, I don't know, but I'm always so fascinated by these things, and seeing all of this happen is so cool. I really think it's so funny the way that she literally would walk off the stage of the Eras tour and get right into the car. Similar with a cleaning cart. It would bring her right to where she had to be. She would walk off stage and get in her car in her Midnight's bodysuit. And we knew this already because there were those photos of her under the umbrella at like the private airport, and she was in her bodysuit. You could tell that she was getting on the plane in her Midnight's bodysuit. But it's just so wild to me that like she would walk off stage, and instead of going to like a dressing room, getting changed, and then getting in her car, she just directly walks off stage into the car in the bodysuit to the hotel. She's wearing the bodysuit in the hotel. I'm like, wouldn't it be easier to just leave it at the venue? But like, again, these are the things, the logistics of these tours. It's so fascinating to me. And like, that might not even be something that somebody picks up on, like, other than me. Like, somebody might have been like, oh, I didn't realize she was wearing it. But I am so interested in the logistics, especially a tour to this magnitude that like was the Eras tour. Seeing her walk off, these were custom bodysuits, and she is just like walking off the stage, going to her hotel, drawing herself a bath with her cats in the hotel room in her Midnight's bodysuit. I was like, what is going on here? This is crazy. I also loved getting to watch the choreography part of it, and watching the way that like Mandy put together the last minute choreography for Florence, and how they, you know, she's like not just worried about the way that the dancers are moving. She's thinking about the stage and how they can create this wave and the way that Florence is going to come out. And like, it's so cool seeing the way that these people work and have to put this together. And really like, there's so many more moving pieces other than like, all right, you're going to do this move, and on the 8 count, you're all going to do this. Like, there is such a bigger beast within any tour that happens, and watching this all come together, it's so fascinating to me. And then we got a little La La Land mention, which if you know anything about me, you know that La La Land is one of my hyperfixation movies. So seeing them just like shout out La La Land in a little segment, that meant a lot to me. I felt like they did that specifically for me. But yeah, it was just really cool to like see the way that like this idea of Florence coming out became this thing. They were able to put it together for the London shows, and then like they were like, all right, let's choreograph it, let's make the stage, let's figure it out. And I think the same thing, and I don't bring them up in a sense of like comparing them, but when you think about like when Beyonce brought out Destiny's Child and they had to do that whole, you know, unique number just for that, or the shows when Beyonce would say it's so impressive when an artist does an entire section of the tour that is like unique for that show. There is a whole, it looks like they're just like bringing out a special guest. And like sometimes it is as simple as like a special guest comes out. But when you are Taylor Swift, when you are Beyonce, like you don't just bring out a special guest, you know, you give them a little extra oomph, you give them a little extra, you give them something to make it special. And like seeing them fully choreograph an entire new routine and the stage and everything for Florence to come out during Florida was so fascinating to me. And then I think one of the biggest conversations coming out of this entire first 2 episodes is the bonus day. And like, people are really curious about how much Taylor Swift is tipping her dancers. And all I'm going to say about that is like, it's none of your business. Like, it is literally nobody's business but Taylor Swift, her accountant, and the dancers, how much they gave her. Are we all curious? Are we all nosy? Yes, of course. But like the think pieces that I'm seeing online about she tipped her dancers this much and she gave her bus drivers this much, I'm like, why are we so hung up on it? Like, we know that she gave them a lot of money. We saw the report come out from Rolling Stone, I believe it was last year, when she like tipped the bus drivers $100,000, I think. Like, we know that they are getting a fat check. But the way that people are like dissecting this online, I'm like, can we just be appreciative that she is giving the dancers a big enough tip or like bonus where they need to use their inhaler to like comprehend the amount of money she just gave them. And somebody made a really good point online that like none of the dancers have really been doing anything outside of the Eras tour. Like we saw Yan, I believe his name is, we saw him on Dancing with the Stars, of course, but like that is like a opportunity of a lifetime for any professional dancer. So of course he took that, but like we haven't seen any of the other dancers pop up on another tour, which if you follow really any artist, like I follow a lot of backup dancers on Instagram. I don't know why. I'm always been fascinated in choreography and like seeing what dancers work with who. But we haven't really seen any of the Eras tour dancers pop up on another tour yet. And people are like, yeah, because she gave them enough for them to like take a break and like take some time with their family or just with their life and like figure out what they want to do next. Like she must have given them a check so big that they are able to fully just like not work for a little bit, not for the rest of their life. I do think, you know, there's a cap to what she gave them. Of course, she's a billionaire, but she's not giving them billions of dollars. But like, it is really admirable to see her like giving them such a check that like I said, like Cam like fully had to stop and be like, oh my God, what am I reading? And then seeing the one dancer like with her inhaler, like it is very admirable. And people always like to throw around the billionaire card and Taylor Swift. There's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. And I agree with that. Nobody in the world should be a billionaire. Like it is just not an amount of money that anybody needs. But I did think it was a really cool and admirable thing to see essentially a boss and her employees. Like she is the boss and she is giving her employees bonuses the same way that our bosses give us bonuses for the holidays and things like that. Like this is essentially what that was. And I thought it was nice just to kind of show the way that she does really care about the people who make the tour what it is, because realistically she could go up on stage and perform by herself and like be fine, but the Eras tour wouldn't be as fun or exciting without the dancers, without the band, without the lights, without like she could go up there but she won't have lights, she won't have audio, she won't have dancers. Like yeah, she'll pull a crowd, but like the reason all these tours are so incredible and so massive is because of all the people behind the scenes and the people on stage who aren't Taylor Swift. So seeing her understanding that and knowing that is very cool. And I mean, Taylor's always, you know, she's never really played about her backup dancers. Let us not forget that like the whole feud between Katy Perry and Taylor Swift started around backup dancers. So like she's always made sure like the people on her team are taken care of, but just very cool to see. And you know, it's I think people love to paint this like evil image of Taylor Swift because again, she is a billionaire, and I do agree ethical billionaires don't really necessarily exist. Like there are some out of touch and, you know, not great qualities that come with a billionaire, but I just thought it was really cool to see the way that Taylor clearly gave them like a life-changing amount of money. And Taylor gets a lot of shit for being a billionaire, which again, I'm not like excusing billionaires. I do think that billionaires shouldn't exist. Like nobody needs that amount of money, but watching somebody like Taylor Swift, who does have so much money, putting that money back into the people that made the Eras tour what the Eras tour was, like without the sound guys, the bus drivers, the dancers, the lighting guy, you know, the people who build the stage, like the Eras tour could not have existed. As much as Taylor Swift is the pole, there is no Eras tour without all of these people. So seeing that she was giving them this crazy lump sum of money, again, it's nobody's business how much, but it was very admirable and cool to see that like she is making sure these people are taken care of long after the tour ends. So just a nice little, you know, again, I don't like to applaud billionaires, and I am by all means not applauding billionaires. You know, it's like you don't clap for a fish when it swims. It is just kind of what you should do with your money. But it is nice to see that like these people are very well taken care of now that the Eras tour is over. And those are the first two episodes, like the things that I really pulled from it. There are 4 more episodes. They are coming out as I am not recording like live episodes of the podcast. So I'm not going to do weekly recaps of them unless there's anything like major. I'll save that for like the first episode of 2026. Maybe like I'll do like an all-encompassing recap there. I'll see how I want to tackle the other 4 episodes, but I just thought it would be fun to chat about the first 2 because I feel like the first 2 are like the big ones, you know, like it's the debut, the premiere of them. So now we kind of know what to expect with the other 4, but I am very excited for the rest of them because like I said, I love this shit. I love behind the scenes tour thing. I love knowing what goes into a concert. Like it's just so fascinating to me. So I am loving this, and I am very excited for the Travis episode, which I think is coming soon. There's got to be a whole episode based on just like, not maybe the whole episode, but there's going to be a lot of Travis content, and I'm very excited to see them because we really don't see much of them behind the scenes, you know, like even hearing her on the phone with Travis in this episode, I was like, this feels like I shouldn't be listening to this. Like, I don't feel like I should be hearing Taylor and Travis chit-chatting, not on a podcast, like the only way we've really seen them previously. So being able to like get a little insight into their relationship and how he kind of like, he really did fully like embrace the Eras Tour. And I mean, the Eras Tour is what brought them together when you really boil it down. So I am very excited to see how that all kind of plays out into the rest of the episodes. But on the topic of Taylor Swift, there was some very interesting, very specific changes happening to the Reputation album over the weekend. And I'm not clowning, obviously, because we're definitely never getting Reputation Taylor's version because she told us we're not getting Reputation Taylor's version. But I am very curious as to why she is doing this. So on Friday morning, I don't know how people realize this. Like, the people who are realizing that Taylor Swift is changing her lyrics are, I don't even know, like, you guys have to sign up for the CIA, because how did you figure out that she changed the lyrics to Reputation without her saying anything? That is so wild to me. But that being said, she did change the lyrics on 2 songs on Reputation. So now on I Did Something Bad, it used to be, if a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. I don't regret it one bit because he had it coming. And now it says, if a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. And if he calls me a bitch, then he had it coming. So that little lyric change there, which is a little more explicit, and it does feel more Reputation. You know, if he calls me a bitch, then he had it coming. Like, not, I don't regret it one bit. That obviously packs a punch, but if he calls me a bitch, then he had it coming. That feels like a little more of like a slap, you know? That feels a little more Reputation coded. And then in Delicate, the other lyric change, it goes from, oh damn, never seen that color blue, to goddamn, never seen that color blue. This one, I don't understand at all, because I'm like, going from oh damn to goddamn doesn't really change the emphasis of the line, but like, it's your album, do whatever you want. But the I Did Something Bad one, definitely, that's like an intentional switch. They're both clearly intentional, but like, I'm very curious, like, why she's doing this and like what the point of changing these lyrics silently is. I don't think we're getting anything, honestly, like Reputation or debut Taylor's version. I really don't. I feel like she is kind of just like leaving them behind, but it is very strange that Taylor Swift is updating the lyrics to Reputation, A, silently, and B, at all. Like, I figured if she's going to change these songs and give us, like, these could very much well just be like the original lyrics that like didn't make the cut, and now she's like, oh, I want to give you guys what I actually wanted to say, and like just by like updating the original tracks. But like doing it silently feels very odd, and I'm like, are these like test lyrics like that she is like putting out to like see that like Apple Music and Spotify can receive these updates without a big change? Like, I don't think anybody got a notification that like your album Reputation was updated. Like, it wasn't like it redistributed the songs in any way. It just somehow some psycho Swiftie was able to like clock that she changed the lyrics. And again, I don't understand how people find these things out. Like, I don't know if somebody is tipped off or like what happened, but like very crazy that like this is something that people can clock and are able to like find without Taylor announcing it. Cause I would have never noticed this. Like, if I listened to the song, yeah, but like I wasn't going to be listening to Reputation on Friday, just like randomly. Like, it's not in my regular rotation, and like maybe that is the thing. Like, I don't listen to Taylor like that often in my rotations. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. But like I don't know. I'm very curious. Like, A, how do people find this out? And B, why is she doing this silently? And why is she doing it at all? But I guess we will have to wait and see. Maybe by the end of the docuseries, she'll tell us why. Or like maybe every week. Maybe every week 2 songs on Reputation are going to get lyric changes because there's 2 episodes. So it's like 1 song per episode. We'll have to check back in next Friday and the Friday after that to see if any other songs change. Now, I'm not going to be the one to sit there and listen to every single song and see if a lyric change, but to the CIA Swifties out there, keep me in the loop, because I'm very curious to see like how she does this and why she's doing this, and if this is just these songs, if there's a reason. Is debut gonna get touched at all? Like, I'm very curious to see curious to see like what this leads to and like why. And like maybe she just like changes these lyrics and like we never find out why, but I think that would be a little weird. Like I don't know if that would make sense for her to like silently do this. I do think she's going to like make some type of like announcement or post. Maybe like in one of the episodes we'll learn about it. Like I wonder if in the docuseries we have footage of her reclaiming her masters, like if it happened while she was on the Eras tour. And maybe like that's she's like, oh, so I decided instead of releasing Reputation Taylor's version, I'm just going to re-release the songs and give you the original lyrics. I don't know. I'm very curious to see, but they're definitely like they're changed. I will say the audio on my Apple Music isn't changed, but the lyrics are. So I can read the lyrics as the new updated ones, but the audio is not updated yet, which makes sense. I would imagine there's a delay. That's like a big update to do, but I have heard it on other people's. And my friend Joe said that he could hear it on I Did Something Bad But Not Delicate or vice versa. So I think it's just like a gradual thing, but like it's definitely happening. And like I said, I can read the lyrics. So clearly something is changing. So who knows what Taylor Swift is up to? Whoever knows what Taylor Swift is up to, you know, like she loves to just always have something up her sleeve. I'm like, girl, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of always having a secret and always hiding something? Like there's always something going on with her. But you know, that's why we love her. That's why we keep her around, because she keeps us on our feet. And speaking of divas who like to keep the next moment of the week that we just too pop to handle is Beyoncé on the cover of Pollstar Magazine, which is the trade publication for the concert and live music industry. So not only is she on the cover of the magazine, are they reporting that Cowboy Carter was the top tour of 2025, she also sat down with them for an interview, which you guys know Beyoncé doesn't just sit down for an interview with anyone. It is always very selective with who she chats with. I mean, she did W Magazine recently, she did Vogue, or she did the cover of Vogue for Renaissance, and she's definitely been a little more public facing over the last few years with these 3-act project, which we've been talking about a lot lately. Like there were so many years, I mean, for like 5 or 6 years with like Self-Titled and Lemonade, like she wasn't doing press, she wasn't doing lead ups, there wasn't a lead single, like these were surprise drops, or they were HBO special turned into an album. Like this isn't typical for what Beyonce has been doing over the last few years, and it is really interesting to see who she chooses to sit down with and who she chooses to share with. And I did really think we were going to get the Cowboy Carter tour movie by the end of the year. That was my theory that I shared a few weeks ago, but now that we only have like 2 weeks left, I'm going to go ahead and say we are not getting a Cowboy Carter tour movie. And I do feel like this interview is our insight into the Cowboy Carter tour, the way that the Renaissance tour was, like the Renaissance tour movie was. So the Pollstar interview, they report that the Cowboy Carter tour is now the highest grossing country tour of all time. And Beyonce stands as the highest grossing Black artist and highest grossing R&B artist in history. She is also the first woman and the first American act to have 2 separate tours surpass $400 million, with the 2023 Renaissance tour earning an astounding $579.8 million and the Cowboy Carter tour earning $407.6 million. It was the highest grossing tour of the entire year, selling 1.6 million tickets. And though the tour only hit 9 different stadiums, it set more than 24 touring records and offered a new mini residency model for large scale touring. So that's something that I think is so interesting about the Cowboy Carter tour, is the way that she chose to do the dates. Like we were talking about when the tour got announced, she didn't do every city like she did for Renaissance or her previous tours, or how typical tours do, where they go to all the big major cities with a stadium. She only did 9 different stadiums, but she did longer stays within each city, which I think is a really interesting and smart way to go about doing a tour. Of course, it does kind of restrict people from going to shows if they aren't able to travel to those cities, which is unfortunate. But I do think it is really interesting the way that these tours, Renaissance, Cowboy Carter, tying it back to the Eras tour, there is something really interesting about the way that these big scale tours boost the economy in these cities when they are there, and seeing the way that like the Eras tour, Cowboy Carter, all of these tours truly like brought so much tourism, and there were so many people benefited within these cities because of these tours coming to them, that I do think this mini residency kind of setup did help more than, it hurt anyone. Of course, it does suck if anybody can't travel to these cities to go to a show, but I do think it is a really interesting way to put on a tour. And I thought it was a really unique and interesting way for Beyonce to go about it. She also shared that the tour had over 350 crew members, over 100 trucks, 8 747 cargo planes, 20 carpenters, over 40 video crew members, and more than 20 lighting specialists to bring this tour together, which is just, when you look at these numbers, you know that the Cowboy Carter tour was a massive production to put on, but seeing that they had 350 crew members and 8 cargo planes on top of 100 trucks. Like, this tour was such a massive scale, and it just kind of ties back into what I was saying with the Eras tours. Like, it's so fascinating being able to see what goes into putting a live show on, and the Renaissance movie was such a really cool insight into seeing what goes on behind the scenes of a production like this. Now, I wish I could stream the Renaissance movie, but we all know that she has that locked under, a lock and key, and we will probably never see it again. But seeing it in theaters, being able to at least see it once and knowing like what really went into that entire tour, and now reading about the Cowboy Carter tour, it's so fascinating. And if you haven't watched Homecoming, Beyonce's Coachella special, it kind of gives another insight into what goes into her shows. But just reading these numbers, it really puts into perspective how massive these tours are and how crazy their productions are. And I mean, the Cowboy Carter tour was such a massive production, like the screens, the stage, it was huge. And if you saw the Renaissance movie, they had 3 different stages that traveled from city to city because it was such a giant stage that if they just moved one stage from city to city, they wouldn't be able to set it up in time for the next show, which I also think probably has something to do with her staying in a city for as long as she did, because they were like, we can't keep building and breaking down this massive stage for only 2 nights. Like, for the Renaissance tour, she did 2 shows in New York. For Cowboy Carter, she did 5. So I do think there is something that has to do with the fact that like the stage is so massive and such a big thing to move that it just makes more sense to keep a stage set for 5 days versus doing 2 days and then moving to another city the next day or 2 days later. And she talked about like what goes into building the stage and the sets. And she said, I believe the stage is a piece of art. It is its own icon. We are building a living, breathing, evolving organism, and I'm extremely hands-on. I care deeply about every sound. We arrange and rearrange each song, visual edit, prop, and choreo piece until we get it to the best place we can. I push until I feel the soul in every element. And if you've ever seen Beyonce live, you know that this is so true. Like, there is not a millisecond from when she goes on stage to when she leaves the stage that it is not perfectly crafted and well thought out. Every light, every sound effect, every mic, filter she uses, every single thing that is happening on that stage is so well thought out. And one of the first things that comes to my mind when I read this is on the Cowboy Carter tour, right before she sings Tyrant. My boyfriend actually pointed this out, but when she sings Tyrant, she rides a mechanical bull. And before that, she's like at the end of the catwalk, and there's all this smoke happening at the main stage. And you just think it's for like a visual, a cool details like that really just make a Beyonce show that much more impressive. And if you have never seen Beyonce live, even if you aren't a huge fan, it is somebody that everybody needs to see once in their life, because she really puts on a show like no other. It is next level. And like, I am obviously biased. Beyonce is my favorite artist of all time, but like, I have brought friends to see Beyonce. I have had friends go see Beyonce because I told them to go see Beyonce, and they were like, wow, like, I'm not the biggest like stan or anything, I just know her hits, but like, that was life-changing. And like, it really is. Like, a Beyonce concert it's more than a concert. Like, it is the most insane experience of your entire life. And the reason being is because she's been doing this for so long. She talks about like back when she was in Destiny's Child, like, they didn't have proper dressing rooms sometimes. They were getting changed just like out in the open, like getting ready, not in a dressing room, because like that's what they had to do. It was right when they were starting out. They weren't given the glitz and the glam of what Beyonce has now, or what Destiny's Child had by the end of the group. Like, she really has seen all of it, and like, being in the industry for so long has just kind of given her this way to perfect the craft. And I think her artistry and, just the way that like her mind works, and even the people at Parkwood, like knowing that some of them have been there with her. I know she did. I think the creative director of Parkwood just left, and there was somebody new coming in, or so there were some changes there, but the meat and the bones of Parkwood is all the same people, just kind of like creating this crazy creative vision. And like, I can't even imagine what goes into like the creative meetings while putting these tours together. And I thought it was so interesting to read more about like how this tour came to be, and all of the people who have touched it, and all the things that like go into thinking and creating and putting the show on. Is just so wild. And then this isn't involved in the interview, but it is very funny that this interview comes out the same week that this happens. But we were talking about how Beyonce went to go see Kelly Rowland open for Brandy and Monica on The Boy Is Mine tour, and she went twice. She went in, I think it was LA and then in New Jersey. And then people are now realizing that after Beyonce saw Kelly Rowland's set at the Boy Is Mine tour, a lot of things have changed in Kelly's set, including the visuals on the screen, the camera work on the screen, and like, is it confirmed that Beyonce went in and was like, oh, you need to do this, do this? Did Beyonce creative direct her set? We don't know. But it is very funny to see that, like, as soon as Beyonce sees the Boy Is Mine tour, suddenly the camera work is very familiar to what Beyonce does on her tours, the effects and the lightings. And like, there's this one part where she does like a slideshow of like all of her past eras and whatever. And it's like, that is literally what Beyonce does at her tours. And like, it's just a funny thing to think that like, did Beyonce go to the Boy Is Mine tour and then be like, all right, Kelly, we got to clean this up and we got to get you a little bit better camera angles and things like that. Because like now Kelly's set looks like she is the main event. Like, she is no longer the opener. You were getting a triple headline tour between Brandy, Monica, and Kelly because Beyonce went in and Beyonce-fied it and was like, girl, I got your back. We're gonna redo this and we're gonna make sure you have the right camera angles and the right visuals and everything. And seeing the videos pre-Beyonce and post-Beyonce, again, none of this is confirmed whether or not Beyonce did touch or suggest anything for the tour, but it's very evident when Beyonce, puts her special touch on, especially a live show. Like, there is something very special about when Beyonce has her hand in any type of live show. And it is very evident that Beyonce gave some pointers to Kelly while she was watching the Boy Is Mine tour, which I just thought was really funny. But this interview was great. If you were interested in reading more, there's a lot more in the interview. Obviously, I'm not going to cover the entire thing, but really, really interesting interview. And again, getting any type of Beyonce interview in any lifetime is very rare. So I will hold on to any of them that we can get. But I do imagine we are going to get a little bit more of Beyonce in the next few months, because if you did not see our next moment of the week that was just too pop to handle, staying on the topic of Beyonce is a co-chair for the 2026 Met Gala, which is fucking insane. Now, it is safe to assume that we are getting a new Beyonce album in 2026. She is following this pattern of releasing an album, touring, releasing an album, touring, and we know we're getting a third act. So I assume we are getting a new Beyonce album in 2026. I'm thinking we're going to get it in May because that is the only Friday of 2026 that is a 29th. Renaissance was July 29th. Cowboy Carter was March 29th. It just makes sense to do another album on a 29th. Now we have Beyonce as a co-chair at the Met Gala on May 4th. I am just standing by the fact that Act 3 is coming in May of 2026. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but this just seems a little too specific for that. Not only like do the numbers line up, Beyonce has not been to the Met Gala in 10 years. It will mark a decade in 2026 of the last time that she went to the Met Gala. And the Met Gala was like a whole event for Beyonce when she would go. Like, she went every single year from 2011 to 2016. We all know that like the infamous moment of Solange and Jay-Z in the elevator happened at a Met Gala after party. Like, the Met Gala is a huge thing for Beyonce. And the fact that she hasn't been in 10 years and now she's going back as a co-chair, this is going to be major. This is going to be insane. I'm like, what is she going to wear? Like, in the last 4 times she went from 2011 to 2016, she wore Givenchy. So like, is she going to go back to that and wear Givenchy for another year? Is she going to, like, what is she going to give us? We know that the theme for the exhibit of this year's Met Gala is costume art, which is exploring the deep relationship between clothing and the body, showcasing fashion as true art by pairing garments with artworks from the Met's collection. So I'm thinking it's going to be very like, I say costumey, not in like a tacky way, but very like bringing the art pieces to life. And I'm really curious like how this is going to translate into the dress code and like what people are going to be wearing. And like, this is exactly the way that Beyonce would tease another album, or like give us something to know about with the album. Think about the Super Bowl, think about the Grammy. She was wearing the cowboy hats and, she was very pointed with that. And even looking at F1, like she did have like that motorcycle helmet on. And when she left the Levi's ad in Act 2, she left on a motorcycle. Like, there's a lot lot of things that this could all kind of come full circle with, and I am very excited. Not only am I excited that Beyoncé is a Met Gala co-chair, but we also have Venus Williams, Nicole Kidman, and of course Anna Wintour. And like, this is just a mother convention. Like Beyoncé, Venus, Nicole, and Anna being the co-chairs of the Met Gala. This is going to be a mother off, and I cannot wait for this. I'm really excited for this. Like, this is going to be insane. Like, I mean, the Beyoncé of it all, of course, but like Nicole Kidman at the Met Gala in her divorce era, we are going to eat on this year's red carpet. And I mean, Venus Williams always looks stunning. Of course, Anna Wintour is going to show up with her sunglasses and bob, but like seeing Beyonce, Venus, and Nicole at the Met Gala as the co-chairs, it's going to be a mother quake in New York City. And I, for one, cannot fucking wait. But we will have to wait and see what they have in store for the Met Gala of 2026. Moving on to the next moment of the week that were just too pop to handle, some gay on gay crime. So Jordan Firstman from I Love LA is criticizing Heated Rivalry, and the Heated Rivalry cast is not having it. So I will say I have not watched I Love LA yet. It's not because I don't want to. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'll get to it. And I just haven't watched it yet. But basically, Jordan Firstman was doing an interview, and he was asked about like what it's like, with gay representation on TV. And he said, yeah, we're going for it. It's gay. I'm sorry. I watched those first 2 episodes of Heated Rivalry, and it's just not gay. It's not how gay people fuck. There's so few things that actually show gay sex. In the first scene, when we both say that part after coming, that's one of my favorite moments. That is a real thing from my life. And it kind of sparked this conversation online about like, how can you say that like this isn't the only way people have sex? Like, you're contradicting yourself within that statement, because like, of course, one show isn't going to fully sum up the way that sex for gay people, for straight people, for any couple, like that's, of course, one show is not going to sum up the entire sexual experience of everybody in the world. So it just seemed like a really silly thing to say. And like, this is based on a smut book, which typically like a smut book is a little, it's a fantasy that they're bringing to life. They're not saying this is like a autobiography of like exactly how things happen. There's going to be a little corner cutting and things like that. But like, at the end of the day, we need to celebrate any gay representation that we can get on television. And like, when we're having queer on queer crime, why are we shooting down the other ones? Can't we just watch all the boys have sex? Like, what is the problem? What's the issue? So the Heated Rivalry cast did chime in, and François, who plays Scott, said, is there only one way to have authentic gay sex on TV? Should the sex that closeted hockey players have look like the sex that sceney LA guys have? And I read that and I was like, oh, he's basically saying like, should an LA party gay have the same type of sex as a closeted hockey player? And I was like, he has some points. It's exactly what I'm saying. Like, for anybody to come out and be like, oh, this is the only way to depict gay representation or gay sex or gay relationship, just like, you could say that about anything. You could watch a 50 Shades of Grey. Does 50 Shades of Grey depict the way that every sex scene happens for straight people? No. And it just seemed like almost like a pick-me comment from Jordan to go on and be like, they're not really depicting how it happens. Like, this is fake. And it's like, you could say that about anything. Like, there's no right way to have gay sex, straight sex, any type of sex. Like, there's different ways to do it. And I just thought it was a really weird statement for him to make. And then Hudson Williams, who plays Shane, chimed in and shared Francois's comment to his story and said, but truly, go watch I Love LA. Jordan and the cast are great. And then Jordan came out and said, I love Heated Rivalry, and ultimately I'm a faggot who can't shut the fuck up, but I'm going to get better at that. And like, that is some advice that we all can take, because I too am a faggot who can't seem to shut up. But like, it just kind of reminds us that like, there's no reason to like rain on somebody else's parade, like, of course, these 2 closeted hockey players having gay sex is going to be a little different than like 2 gay guys in WeHo hooking up at the Abbey. Like, it's 2 very different situations. And I just think like there's a weird conversation right now online about like Heated Rivalry not being good gay representation. And I just think we need to stop that narrative of like, any type of gay representation, especially in today's political climate, is good gay representation. Like, if there's a queer story being told on television, that is a win for all of us. And like, we don't need to like have a bigger dick competition about like who's showing a more authentic experience for gay people, who's showing a better realistic experience for how gay sex works or how a gay relationship works. Because like, there was a time when like gay people weren't on television, like we weren't seeing any of this. You know, it's still kind of a taboo thing to like have a show based around two gay characters. You know, there's definitely a crazy margin between like the heterosexual couples that we see on television versus the homosexual ones. And I just think when we have anybody coming in and like, you can have your thoughts on a show and like, yeah, of course it's a little exaggerated. It's a smut book brought to a television show. It's going to be a little more over the top and a little more fantasy, you know, whatever. But like, why are we raining on a parade when it's like a television show? You know, this isn't a sex ed class. This isn't like the ultimate guide to how to have a gay relationship. It's just a TV show. And like I said, I haven't watched I Love LA, so I don't know what the scenes are and like what happens in that show. But I'm sure those scenes are a little more authentic to the day-to-day gay person who like is out partying in New York or LA or, you know, in a gay club kind of thing. And like whatever it is, again, I haven't watched it yet, so I can't fully weigh in. But like, yeah, no shit that like the sceney LA gay sex scene is going to be a little more relatable than two huge hockey players who are closeted and have to sneak around and have to hook up under like different names. Like, yeah, of course it's going to be a little more realistic on your show than this show, but like that doesn't make it any less of like a gay story to watch or to consume, or like we shouldn't be watching it. I don't know. I just thought it was a really weird and kind of like pick me attitude to have. And again, like he did come out and say like, I love the show. I apologize, like whatever. Like, I think it was just like in the moment, the way that he answered it was he didn't think about it before he spoke, which we've all been victims of. But I just thought it was like, why are we tearing down another gay story if we have so few? You know, there's so few gay stories being depicted in the media, and like our current administration is trying to make even less gay stories be depicted in the media. So like, if we can have any type of gay story on television, whether it is a little dramatized or not, like, why be mad about it? Why rain on the parade? You know, I don't know. There's definitely just like some weird conversations about Heated Rivalry happening online right now. I will say I do fully agree that like this show needs a little diversity. Like we need a little color. We need some meat on these boys' bones. Like it is fun to watch these like sculpted hockey players hook up and things like that. And like the randomly sculpted barista at the smoothie bar. Like, yeah, I'm not mad about it, but like in that sense, I understand the like, that's a false reality because not every guy looks like that. But also like in the year 2025, we know that this isn't 2003 when like there are these crazy, you know, expectations for body images and things like that. Like we are a little more advanced, and we do understand that like this is not always the case. You know, your smoothie barista isn't always going to have an 8-pack and like be willing to just like be your side for a little while. Like, yes, we know that, but like that's the fun of Heated Rivalry. It kind of makes like this fantasy and things like that. But I do think there is space for, you know, maybe a little stockier hockey player or a hockey player who is black or, you know, whatever. But at its core, like, let's not rip down a gay story being told on TV when we have so few of them. Like, let's just hold on to it and like enjoy it and like just like watch these attractive men have sex. Like, what's so wrong about that, you know? I don't know. But what I will say is I loved this week's episode of Heated Rivalry, episode 4. I thought it was so well done. I think we're really seeing some really big character development happening. And that final scene when they're playing All the Things She Said while Ilya and Shane are like watching each other in these moments after Shane walks out of their little moment. And then Ilya's like grinding on that girl. And it was just like such a like, oh my God, it was just like a gut-wrenching moment. It almost gave me like the final scene of La La Land, but La La Land's a positive, you know, final outcome, where this is obviously like sad, but I don't know anything about the story. I haven't read the books. I haven't seen any spoilers, so I don't know what's coming next, but I know we are coming up on like the end. I think there's only 8 episodes, so we're halfway through the season, so very curious to see like how this all plays out. Maybe it's only 6 episodes actually. I don't know, but we're coming towards the end, so we are going to see what happens with them for this season. It did get signed for season 2, which I'm very excited about. But very good episode this week. I really, really liked it, and I'm very excited to see how they follow it up this week. I did read that it is an hour-long episode this week, so we get 10 extra minutes of the boys kissing, which I will never be mad about. And moving on to the next moment of the week that we're just too pop to handle. This will kind of lead us into our TV recap. But Bronwyn Newport and her husband Todd Bradley have separated after 9 years of marriage. And if you've watched this season of Salt Lake City at all, you know that like either this was coming or like a big change to their marriage was coming. And like, this is very sad, but ultimately I do think this is the right thing to do for both parties. And like, we've seen Todd be not the best husband on the show, but I do think like they're, you know, the two of them, they had their moment and they did what they needed to do. And I do think like the paths that they're both going down, like Todd is this huge tech ? This huge whatever guy at his job, and Bronwyn is clearly like going down this path of like finding her true self. We keep seeing all these conversations with her and her mom Muzzy of her like fully just being like, I didn't know how to do this. I didn't want to let you down or whatever. And I feel like Bronwyn's really coming into her own. And I think being on TV and seeing herself on television and seeing how maybe she answers things or how she navigates life has really put things into perspective. And I think, yes, divorce is a sad thing, but I think the two of them being on TV and seeing all this happen, I think it ultimately got them to the point to realize like, oh, we've been avoiding this conversation and like, we should figure out why this isn't working. So they have come to the agreement of splitting. Bronwyn's team told People Magazine that it was a mutual decision made with care and respect for one another. And I mean, we saw so much on this season alone. I mean, the infidelity scandal with Todd, Bronwyn, and Whitney having the conversation about like, should we have an open relationship with our husbands? And, you know, just like all of that happening at it's not shocking that this happened, but it is sad to like be watching their marriage on TV right now and knowing behind the scenes that like they're separated and there is a divorce in the future. But like I said, I think this is the best thing that can happen to Bronwyn, and I'm sure she probably feels the same way after seeing what's going on TV this season. I just think she is herself, you know. I mean Bronwyn like clearly like decorates the house however she wants, she dresses however she wants, like she is very much her own person. But I think there's always that like backfall of like, oh, I am Todd's wife, and like, you know, that whole side of it. So I do think in the long run this is going to be a very good thing for Bronwyn, and I'm very excited to see her kind of blossom on next season and kind of see like what new wings she gets while she goes into this new like divorce era. Again, divorce is never something to celebrate. It is a very sad and hard thing to go through, even if it is a mutual agreement. Like, this is a whole life changing, and especially with her daughter and all of that, like there's a lot going on, I feel like, in that sense. But this is the right thing to do. And I think we all kind of saw this coming. Something else that we all probably saw coming is a lot of drama from this new Mary Cosby documentary that's coming out on TLC. So it's called The Cult of a Housewife. It premieres on January 2nd, but there were some early screeners that went around, and now people are reporting that a lot of the ex-congregants are saying that Mary was basically like pressuring them into giving donations. There's leaked audio that came out from 2020. I wasn't watching Housewives back then, so I'm not familiar with this, but it kind of like follows up on that. But apparently there was this leaked audio of Mary complaining about only getting 14 birthday cards from the people at her church. And then this one congregant or ex-congregant that they talked to says, I gave this chick a card with $1,000 and it asked me if she said thank you. So I think we're going to learn a lot. Actually, I know we're going to learn a lot about Mary and her church, and especially knowing that like the church is coming back into picture on this season of Housewives that we're watching, and this documentary comes out in about 2 weeks. Like, it's crazy because Mary did step away from the church for 2 years, and it was kind of this like unspoken thing on the show. I didn't really look into it outside of the show, so maybe there was a reason that they talked about, but to my knowledge, she kind of just like stepped away. They had to redo the church and things like that, and now she is reopening it. So for this documentary to be coming out as the church is actively reopening and things like that, and we're seeing it on TV, very crazy. And I'm very curious to see like what else they uncover in these documentaries, like as it comes out. I believe it's 3 episodes. The first episode comes out January 2nd. So we will have to wait and see what all comes out about that. But very crazy week for the Salt Lake City housewives. I mean, Bronwyn and Todd's divorce. Mary is forcing people to give her money. Jen Shaw's released from prison. Like, a lot's going on over in Salt Lake City this week, which leads us into our TV recap segment of the show. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Angie K finally gets her trip to Greece, and there's a lot going on. There is a lot, as there always is with these women, but there is so much going on. I mean, I think the whole thing with Heather and Whitney buying a Cartier bracelet in the airport because Lisa said that like Angie copied her or whatever, and then they went and bought the same one. Hilarious. I love Whitney and Heather together again. Like the seasons in like the early seasons when the two of them were like connected at the hip, they were so much fun together. And then when they had this riff and they kind of, you know, took time apart, it was hard to enjoy the two of them separately. I'm not going to lie. Like I went into this season, I think I said it on the podcast, but I went into this season of Housewives being like, honestly, Whitney's like not my favorite anymore. Like I don't need to watch her. Her storyline isn't interesting. This season has completely done a 180 to me, to Whitney. Like I am back to loving her. Like she is back to the woman who dropped the cake on her birthday or whenever it was. Like she's back to being like this fun Whitney. And she said it on the show, like she did lose herself for a year or so because she was so worried about her business going under, and it did go under. But now she's like, I don't care anymore. Like I'm just going to live how I want to and be wild Whitney Rose. And that is exactly what we need. And I think her and Heather needed to grow separately to come back together. Like we needed Heather to go through everything with her daughters and her ex-husband and everything, and just kind of like get the birds out of the nest, which she's doing now, and like really find herself. I think she's coming clean on a lot of like the procedures she's got done. So I think that's probably helping her a lot find herself and kind of with her self-confidence, which it's sad to hear that someone needs to get a lot of work done to feel good or confident about themselves, but like that is why you do it. And I mean, she literally owns a med spa. So like, it does make sense that like, that would be something that did help her kind of get to this point in her life. But yeah, seeing Whitney and Heather together, I love Bad Weather, and it's just so fun to see them like back to how we met them on the first few seasons of the show. Lisa and Angie, they'll never stop hating each other. I am just at a point where I can understand that like they will never be friends again. And if they are ever friends again, it's going to take a lot of work, because even like this conversation with the Cartier and the Porsche, and I have my fourth, I'm on my fifth, like nobody cares how many cars you have. They are literally in a constant who has a bigger dick competition. And I'm just like, can we drop it? Like the two of you just stop talking, like stop having conversations, stop conversing with each other. It's not getting anywhere, and they just need to cut it out. They need to stop chatting. They need to stop talking. They need to just coexist. And I think that is the only way the two of them can proceed, is if they just like admit their wrongs and coexist together, because otherwise it's going to be, I have more Cartiers than you. I drive a better Porsche than you. I have a bigger house than you. I have this. I have like, shut the fuck up. My God. Speaking of Angie, I thought it was really bold of her to say to Bronwyn, oh, you're going to find a second husband on this trip, while they're talking about all like the hot men in Greece. Because yes, Bronwyn did say that her and Todd were having problems, but maybe I'm forgetting, but I don't recall her ever saying they have an open marriage or anything. Like I know that there was the issues with him looking at the girls on his phone on the plane. And of course she had the conversation with Whitney about like potentially doing an open marriage or whatever, but I don't remember that being an open conversation or Bronwyn ever confirming it. So for Angie to just like come out of the bat and be like, oh, you're going to find a second husband here because you guys are in an open marriage, that was ballsy. But I mean, like, Angie K is in Greece. Angie K doesn't give a fuck about anything other than the fact that she is in Greece. And honestly, I don't blame her. I just thought it was really bold of her to just like come out and say that when like nothing's confirmed, nothing's set. And like also that conversation happening on the episode that aired the same week that the divorce is finalized or like the divorce is announced. I was like, oh, this was very properly planned. Like whoever's publicist was planning out the announcement of this separation did it flawlessly with that little conversation. And then the other big thing I feel like on this week was the whole Heather and Meredith argument, where we see Meredith offer Heather a necklace as like a peace offering, and Heather's like, I'm not forgiving you, the whole whatever. It does seem like, though I do love Whitney and Heather together, it does feel like a lot of the things that Heather does on the show seems not overproduced, but she only wants to have these conversations with the group with cameras up because she wants more screen time. And that's not to say like anything about her character. I think she knows that she is a reality star, and like she wants to make good TV to like not get ratings up, but it almost feels like she wants to be the one to like have these conversations on camera to like almost like win some of the audience over or something. I don't know exactly what the angle is she's going for, but for Meredith to be like, I called you this morning, I've tried to talk to you off camera, I've tried to talk to you without the groups, like, and you refuse to talk to me unless the cameras are up and we're in the group. Meredith's like, I'm not doing this. I want to talk to you as human beings, just the two of us, and have this conversation, and Heather won't do it, which definitely, again, it just gives me that idea that like she is only doing these feuds for the camera almost, and I'm like, I don't know. Heather, I enjoy Heather. I do. I know a lot of people don't. And like, she's not my favorite housewife, but like, I do enjoy watching her. I think she does add a good storyline to the show. And especially just thinking about like how she started versus where she is now on the show, it's a totally different person for the better. But it is a little weird that like Meredith is like, I have tried to have these conversations with you so many times and you won't do it unless we're in the group, which does kind of make me think she's like afraid to fight her own battle. And she needs like Whitney or somebody there to almost like support her in a way, which like does seem a little like a cheap cop-out to me. I don't know. I could be fully like reading into it, and again, very parasocial of me to like assume what I know about these women, but it is very weird that like she won't have a conversation with Meredith off camera, and like she won't do it without the group there. She needs the girls there. She needs to do it with everybody around to like fully unleash this. And that does rub me the wrong way. So I don't know what's going on there, but I am very curious to see like what else happens on this Greece trip, because it does seem like there's a lot of unfinished business on this season. And like, I don't know how much longer we have of this season. I don't know how many more episodes we have, but like there's a lot of things that need to be resolved. And I don't know how we're going to resolve them all on this season. I don't think we're going to. And I think a lot of things are going to carry over again into next season, which I don't love. Like, come on, like we're adults. Like, let's get to the bottom of it. But like, I guess like we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. But like I keep saying, it's so clear to me that a lot of these women are not friends off camera whatsoever, and they are only hanging out when there are cameras up. And I feel like some of them want those relationships off camera and want those friendships, because I do think there was a point where all of them were genuinely friends, or at least there were like friend groups within. But it does seem like a lot of them aren't friends when cameras aren't up, which is typical of housewives. That's not crazy. They are a cast. They are filming together. But it just kind of like, it takes out that like fun of the housewife. You know, there needs to be a little more like meat to some of the relationships. And I feel like we're just not getting it. Like a lot of the relationships aren't blossoming anymore within the Salt Lake City housewives, because they're so burned by what's happened with Monica, with Jen, with so many things have happened that they're all just kind of like their guards are up and they only let like one or two in. So I don't know. I'm curious to see like how the dynamic keeps going. Also, somebody pointed out that Meredith took out Real Housewives of Salt Lake City from her Instagram bio recently, which somebody reported that she wanted more money and they're not giving it to her. So maybe she's not filming anymore, which I don't know how true that is. Again, this is just all what I'm reading online, but I'm wondering, I'm like, is Meredith not going to return? Or is Meredith going to be on the new RHONY that we're getting? Because we only know 3 people in the cast, and we know Meredith does have a place in New York. Do we think Meredith is leaving Salt Lake City and is going to get cast on RHONY? Because that would be insane. Like, I would honestly love that for Meredith to just like take herself out of it and like fully start in the New York scene. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Very, very interesting things happening over in Salt Lake City, as I said. But with all of that being said, we have made it to the final segment of this week's episode and the final Yes and Mess of 2025. You guys know the drill. We end every single episode here at Too Pop to Handle with a yes and a mess. A yes being something I am loving and a mess being something I am not loving. And we always start things on a high note. So kicking things off with my guest this week is Rebecca Black's cover of Fame is a Gun for Triple J. I cannot get enough of this cover. It is so incredible. And like, I've been on the Rebecca Black train for a while, and I just feel like there's going to be a Rebecca Black renaissance in 2026 where like she's really going to have a huge moment. She's had a few moments here and there over the last few years, but it's really been like internet niche queer culture. I really feel like 2026 might be the year that Rebecca Black breaks into the mainstream in a positive way and not in like a Friday way, you know? And this cover is just incredible, and I cannot get enough. If you have not heard it, please go listen to it. It's just perfect. It's so good. She also did a cover of a Pink Panther song. I'm forgetting what song it was, but again, just incredible. And I just feel like, I think the culture is ready for a Rebecca Black breakthrough into mainstream media, and I cannot wait for that to happen. But this cover, Chef's kiss. Incredible. And switching gears over to my final mess of 2025 is Time's Person of the Year being the architects of AI, because there are so many reasons why anything tied to AI should not be the Person of the Year. Like, I'm really floored by the way that like so many people in the world just openly accept and use AI as a regular tool, a regular thing, and don't see the downsides, the harms, the scary things it can do. Like, I understand where AI is a good thing. I think there are some great uses of AI. Unfortunately, like any good thing, when people have too much access to it, it becomes an abuse of power and it starts to really harm people, places, things. Our planet is literally burning because of AI. People are not doing their own research or work or anything because they have AI to do it. People are losing their jobs because AI is fully taking over their jobs, which is so dehumanizing. Like, how are we firing people because they can be like, oh, like I have friends who are video editors and they're like, yeah, we're losing our jobs because there's an AI video editor that will do our job for us. And it's like, yes, it will cut the video for you and it will make it easier. But if there's not human touch to a video or to any project or to anything, like if you take humans out of every process, it's not, there's just like, it loses what being a human is all about. And it's just like, it blows my mind that like it shouldn't blow my mind because Time Magazine also gave Donald Trump Person of the Year. Time Magazine also gave Hitler Person of the Year. Like, you know, it's always a questionable choice for the most part, but like there were so many other people you could have given the Time Person of the Year 2025 to, and giving it to the architects of AI. And I just think we're getting way too comfortable applauding what AI is doing to the world. And like, I've said it so many times in this podcast, but I am just so over it. And I think that's the perfect way to end the final Too Pop to Handle episode of 2025, just continuing to shit on AI the way that I have all year long. But with all of that being said, we have made it to the end of the final episode of 2025. Now, of course, you will hear from me one more time this year, but you guys know what I mean. This is the final, like, true Too Pop to Handle episode of the year, which is crazy. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode, last week's episode. If you listen to any episode of this podcast in 2025, thank you guys so much. Seriously, it was such a crazy year for me personally, professionally, for the podcast, for so many different reasons. And I am so thankful for everything that happened to me this year, for every opportunity, for every rejection, for every redirection, for everything that has happened to me in 2025. Thank you guys for being on this journey with me along the way, even if it just means listening to me in your headphones every single week. It seriously means the world to me. If you liked what you heard and you are listening to us as a podcast, please go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the like button, drop a comment down below. You guys know the drill. And if you would like some extra moments of the week that were just too pop to handle in between podcast episodes, make sure you subscribe to my weekly newsletter popping in over on Substack. I will have it linked down below. Or you can just go to toopoptohandle.substack.com and subscribe to get some extra moments of the week that were just too pop to handle in between podcast episodes. And if all of that is not enough, you can always follow us on social media at Too Pop to Handle across all platforms, or on my personal at Andrew Nucatola across all platforms. And with that, I will catch you guys in 2 weeks with our 2025 moments of the year that were just too pop to handle pop culture recap. Bye.